Okay, I'm heading out to the coach and we're going to look at where I put the table pedestal. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So there was the original table over there, and here's the one I installed. And I have a separate video that talks about how I decided it was safe to drill a hole in the floor, how I discovered what was under the floor. Right here you see, obviously you got a water faucet, you have electrical, and you have a duct. So there's a lot of utilities that are running under there. So it's important to make sure that I don't drill into something. And there's also framing. The box needs some support, and you don't want to drill through like load-bearing framing support that is going to make it so that the floor is compromised. So I want to talk about, I'm going to actually disassemble this and show you what's underneath it. But I also want to talk about just I don't know about you guys, but I spent probably more time researching and trying to figure out what screws to use here. You know, it's not so simple. There's so many different fasteners and screws out there. So I'm actually gonna help you guys out with that too, if you guys you know, have issues with that. One of the things about putting this in is that because these screws have like a chamfer or a tapered head, they need to sit down in this in these recesses flush. And if you drill your hole at an angle, or it's not perfectly centered in these areas, then you won't be able to drive your screw all the way down and have it centered in the recess, and it'll stick up. And so it's really important to be very careful when you drill your holes. And what I did is I drilled a small hole first, because the drill bit wanders around a little bit. I drilled a small hole, make sure it's centered, and then drill the larger hole. And the goal is to have your screw heads, you know, nice and flush and centered in each one of these openings. It sounds trivial, but it's like a super important part of the step. And if you can't screw your screw in all the way because your hole's not centered, it'll stick up. You can catch, you know, your shoe on it and things like that. So, you know, it's trivial, it's important. Anyway, I'm just going to disassemble the table. And the cool thing about this is, this table mod is I will travel. You could store the table anywhere, this other table, but I typically travel with it like this, and it's behind the driver's seat. And this other table, I can simply remove it and store it in its original spot back here. So I have a place to store it. So I'm gonna transition to getting my screwdriver, and we'll take out that plate so you can see what's underneath there. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pull some of these screws out, well, actually all of them out. I'm just gonna loosen them with I'll loosen them by hand and try to get them out with the. So this is the thing people are most interested in, understandably. Like, you want to make sure you want to make sure you're not going to damage something when you install this table. Okay, so I am going to show you Alright, so you can see, like I was talking about these screws, I mean, the length of them matters, the angle of the head matters, and the size of the head, this angle. There's a lot of things that need to be spec'd in order for it to work with this pedestal mount. So there we go. That's how the mount looks from the bottom. Okay. And now let's go ahead and look down this side. Okay, so I pulled out my pedestal base and we're gonna take a peek in here, and you can see that there's water lines. And the one thing that I was surprised about is that when I looked at the 3D drawings, it showed the water lines running behind a bracing board here, and then along this wall, and hooked to the faucet. And I think they did this because the water lines are pretty stiff and they need to come in and be connected to the back of the faucet. So, and the connections are oriented this way. So I think they brought the water lines out, you know, kind of in an arc with a longer bend radius so they could make that connection rather than using a 90-degree connection, which I think they're using in their 3D drawings. Like I think they're showing a 90-degree connection with the water lines. So, and like I wasn't worried about these because the depth of this, you know, this pedestal mount, it's it sits well above these water lines. I don't have to worry about that. So, but again, there's you can see electrical, like that flexible, like black conduit there. That's the electrical lines that are coming to this outlet right here. And all of this originates from underneath the jump seat. So if you move here's the jump seat. If you remove this plastic tray, you can look down in here and you can see there's the electrical lines heading out under the gap, under the front edge of the jump seat, right there. And there's that gap that you can use to scope. So it wasn't the lines weren't where they were pictured in the 3D drawing. Well, the electrical lines were, but these water lines weren't. But it's not a problem. The biggest concern is you are bracing, and it can vary from coach to coach and year to year. And I knew that I was going to hit this a little bit because I stuck a coat hanger. First thing I did before you drill your large hole, you kind of figure out where you want it. I drill a small hole initially, and I stuck a bent coat hanger down it like this, and I rotated the coat hanger. I made the coat hanger like radius like the size of the hole, and I stuck the coat hanger down and I rotated it, and I felt it hit here, and I rotated all around and I felt it hit here. So I could tell that there was a piece of wood interfering with where I wanted the hole, but because it hit here and hit here, I knew it was a very small portion of the hole. It's not like it's running across the entire hole. And you can find that out by using the coat hanger. So if you drill your small hole and you stick your bent coat hanger in there, and you can push the coat hanger up and down, and I could feel these water lines actually, and I could tell that they were at the bottom, and then I could tell that the bracing was there. And so if you have that small hole drilled initially, you have the opportunity to move it. Like once I found that this was here, I could have moved the hole a little bit over, you know, but I had spent so much time making sure that the hole placement was exactly where I want it for clearance, you know, one table relative to the other, that I prioritized my hole placement over this. I didn't change anything. So okay, now we're going to go over what I think is really the most important step, and that's to actually explore this area before you drill your hole. And so the way I did that was I had picked a place where I wanted the hole, and I drilled this small hole in, you know, in the floor. So this was actually still a solid floor, and I wanted my hole to be centered here. And although you have the resources on Winnebago site, can see that things may not be exactly the way they're described on the site. So the 3D drawing site showed these water lines running along the front edge. So it's really important to explore yourself. So what I did is I created I used a piece of bent coat hanger, and I put this, so I made the radius, the length of that bend, as big as when you trace it out as an arc, when you spin it, it will be the size of the hole. So my goal was to stick this down through the hole that I drilled, and so you can see if you can get it around there. Try to do this one hand. So what happened is that came through the other side, right? And so I would spin the coat hanger after I inserted it in the hole, and I would raise the coat hanger up and down. And I did that to be able to tell if there's stuff underneath. So let's see if I can get this off here. Okay, so I went through this hole. There was a small hole here, and I put the coat hanger, and I had it, and I just turned it in an arc through the hole, and I came up and down, and I could tell I was hitting something soft. It sounded different, so I was pretty sure there was some, water lines or something under there. But I went, I was able to raise this up and down and tell, like, okay, that's how much clearance I have for the pedestal base. And I rotated this coat hanger around, and what happened was during the course of rotating it, I would hit this piece of wood at different portions in the arc. So I rotated, I'd hit here, I'd rotate all the way around, it's clear, it's clear, it's clear, and then I'd hit again here. So I knew there was a piece of wood blocking a portion of where I wanted to drill, but I knew it wasn't a big area because it only stopped the coat hanger from turning in a small area, in a small angle. So I decided, because I'd spent so much time determining where exactly I wanted to put the hole for clearance, and being able to rotate the seats was an issue, being able to get through between the two tables. So I spent a lot of time, and I just prioritized my hole placement over that piece of wood. So I said, I don't mind if I'm drilling, cutting out a small portion of that supporting brace, that's okay, but I wouldn't want to do a cut where I'd, cut out a large portion of the brace. So the coat hanger is like the #1 thing. So if it turned out that you picked a hole, you had your small hole drilled, so you drilled your small hole, and then you find that you're hitting too much, you could move your hole over and then try different spots. And then when you get the final placement that you want, you would use a hole saw, and this is a 3.5-inch hole saw. So whatever your final I call this like an exploratory hole, whatever that final position is, you would center your hole saw and just drill slowly straight down. And you want to make sure, of course, you don't pop through quickly and then come down and puncture the water lines. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. And I'll show you from the top where my hole placement kind of is, so you can see a general area. Like you could even count like these little grid positions, but I hesitate to say you should drill your hole here because every coach could be different, and it's really up to you to use that process I just described to make sure that it's going to be one that works for you. So I know what you're thinking. You like the table mod, you wanna do it, and you just want to know where to drill the damn hole. And I've intentionally not said specifically where you should drill your hole. And that's because every coach can be different. You see it in the model numbers. They'll have 2021s, they'll have 2021.5s. And, you know, the Winnebago is constantly, as they learn, I believe, making adjustments and improvements. So they could be in maybe different parts, you know, play a role. But every coach could be different. So what I've done in this video is basically enabled you to figure out where you want to, where it's safe to drill your hole. I do have another video. It's called brainstorming the table mod. So if you look for that video, you can see how I determined my hole placement. And I was sure that I built up like a prototype cardboard table, and I used it and I kind of stood it there, and I made sure I could do things like rotate the seats, walk between them, swivel the table. I could, if the table was at that position, could I use it for food prep? So if you look at that video on my channel, you can find some kind of the rationale or how you can fine tune it. Now, I think this table placement would work for most people, but the thing that I can't say for sure is what is in that hole when you drill it. So that was the purpose of this video. You can see, you know, where my table is placed, kind of relative to the edge of the seats and things like that. If I do a top-down view, you can kind of see where it is, and you could use that as a rough estimate. And you could drill that exploratory hole and explore with the coat hanger to see if it's going to work for you. So I hope this helped. This is a great mod. It's actually really simple. It's really cool because it's a simple mod that really improves the usability, comfort, and enjoyment and convenience of the coach. Where I went to find out information about what's under that raised floor area before I drill a hole, and make sure, do all the research I can to see what is under there. You can scope under the floor, but there's also a bunch of resources on Winnebago's site. They have detailed 3D drawings of the entire coach. So I'm going to show you how I used Winnebago's website to find detailed 3D drawings of that raised floor area. So if you go to the Winnebago site and you go to the owners tab, and you'll see owner resources. So you're going to click on owner resources, and it'll bring up a helpful link, and it's this 3D service parts lookup. So websites change over time, so the key thing you'd probably want to search for is Winnebago 3D parts, and that should bring you to this point. So here's the catalog page, and then here it's going to prompt you for your year of your coach. So I have a 2023 Winnebago Solis 59PX built on a 2022 Ram ProMaster. I'm going to select 2023 because that's the year of the Winnebago portion of my coach. So I'll hit 2023, and I scroll down to, I get to the Solis, and I have a 59PX, so I'm going to select that. So that brings up another page, and here it kind of breaks down the entire coach by functional areas. You have the chassis, electric, exterior. The thing that I'm interested in is this appliance, cabinets, curtains, furniture. This will give me information about how that floor is constructed. So I go to click on that, and here's the interior. I click on appliance and cabinets, and here we go. I have a 3D drawing that includes the raised floor area where I'm considering putting the other table. So you can see here's the current table, and I'm considering putting another table pedestal in about this area right here. So I want to see what's under there, so you can rotate this up, and you can see that there is some bracing. So they have that in-floor like storage area. They call it the wine cellar. And you have, here's where your pedestal comes through for the existing table. You have some bracing and some wooden supports that support the table. And I was encouraged when I saw this because I plan to put it about in this area, and if I rotate up, it looks like there's plenty of room between the braces. And here you can see the size of the current table, so it would be a hole about this size in this area. And I feel more confident that I'm not going to hit a brace or wood, and this gives me some idea of what's under there. Here's where the electrical, this is where the water faucet is mounted, and here's an electrical outlet, your 115 in your raised floor area, and there's your duct. So this just tells me the construction of the cabinet and the framing and the wood, but because we have all these other utilities that are coming through the raised floor area, I have to be concerned about that too. So I want to find drawings and information about how the plumbing and the electrical and the furnace stuff is routed. So I can go back. So here on this tab, you can see here's a plumbing. So I'll just show an example of plumbing. I want to see how the water lines are routed. So I'll click on that, and then I come here, and there's some choices, and just poked around and looking at looks like there's some year limit, so I'm going to pick this one. Let's see, maybe this one here. And this is really cool because now you can see how all your water lines in your coach are routed. So it's cool. So you have your water panel back there in the back, and they come up through that storage area. Some of them come to the sink area. Some of them come back here to the shower, and then eventually they get up to feed the this is the one I'm concerned about because this is the raised floor area. And so you can see the water lines, and you can see that they originate underneath the front edge of the jump seat. So it's kind of hard to get this oriented. Let me see if I can get this panned around a little better. Anyway, so if we look straight down, this is where your jump seat is, and the water lines come under a gap in the front wall of the jump seat, and they come under that raised floor. So this gives, this tells me my expectations. So what we're going to find later, though, in the follow-on video is they show 90-degree connections on this water faucet. So this is the water faucet that you can use to connect a hose to spray off your feet, or you spray off your dog, it's often said. And in this particular drawing, you see how these water lines are routed this way, and it's like a 90-degree connection. And you'll see later on that they're actually not routed that way. In my coach, they come out like this. They go around. They go like through here and around the back side of this brace. So even though the owner's resources and these drawings can give you some expectations of the kinds of things that you'll find under the floor, but it may not be exactly the way it is drawn here. So at the time I drilled my hole, my expectation was that because my hole would be here, I wouldn't have to worry about the water lines. And you'll see later that they actually are in the area where I drilled my hole, but they weren't. It wasn't a problem. So let me see if I have some other stuff brought up. Yeah. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, and you just kind of have to poke around and just go through these links. but the 3D service parts lookup was an important link, and also there is a guides and diagrams. So I'm going to give a tour of what's down in that hole, like a video tour, and I have to do this in like portrait mode because I want to stick the phone down that hole. And what we're expecting to see is, okay, we got the duct work, we got electrical, we got our water lines, and let's go down here and see if we can see where they are. So right away, the top-down view, we see some bracing and we see a water line. So we're going to come in, and I'm looking. So that right there, that board, we come out, that's that box right there. That's the framing for the box. So I'll come straight down, and now I'm going to turn it to the left. So the water lines, and so if you look here, you can actually see all three utilities. The white on the bottom is the water. We've got the corrugated like a conduit for the electrical line, and then that thick foam like pipe is for the heat duct. So you can see everything right there coming out, and this is all coming out from behind the board. I'm going to come straight up so you see where that's coming from. It would be from under the jump seat. So you have your water lines and so you can see the white water lines and your electrical lines and the duct all going under a gap in the jump seat. So come back here and then go back down in the hole, and there they are right there. And let's keep turning. Let's see if we can see. So now I'm looking toward the slider and looking toward the front of the vehicle. So like we said, we noted that the water lines actually go in an arc. This is looking towards pretty much the front passenger seat direction, and then those water lines are tracing an arc. And here's the stored little box in the floor, and back to this. So of course you can't do this until you have a big hole drill, but it's still interesting to see, and it'll really help somebody kind of understand and what did they expect to be under here. So